Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going over my personal strategy to deck build. I have this sort of system I use whenever I'm building a deck. I thought I'd share it with you guys because it's pretty interesting, and I use it all the time. So, say we wanted to build a I've been working on this Lux Trundle deck. So let's start with that. So we'll go Trundle and then we'll go Lux. So the strategy, and obviously you can pick your champions first or you cannot. Basically the first step in my strategy is to pick your win condition. So that's step one. Pick a win condition, know what it is, and know how it works. So for example, if you're playing Swain, your condition is the Swain Leviathan combo. You're trying to get both those cards on the field. So, as long as you have that in mind, you're going to know how you win the game. Now, for this specific strategy, Trundle Lux, we're going to be wanting to use Lux's ability to remove blockers to make our attacks better, in combination with Trundle's ability to create a great body, give our enemies vulnerable, but most importantly, have Overwhelm on a very hard body to kill. So the idea here is we're playing a buff strategy where we buff our dudes and attack our opponent after we've already sort of fought for the field and we've gotten it. So it's basically a mid-range deck with a mix of some spells from Lux. Now there is an argument to change this to Quinn, sort of go for a wide board, possibly scout synergistic strategy. We could go for a Lucian, maybe even Garen. Sejuani also sits well, but I do like Lux's ability to sort of take out units, help us get the control factor in if we need to go a little bit later. So, now that we know what our win condition is, we have to identify cards that can help us get there. So, since Trundle has Overwhelm, a card we could put in is Battle Fury. Giving our units Overwhelm and then using Battle Fury on it can be pretty powerful. And that gives us the perfect excuse to play Augur of the Old Ones. Now, I've never played Augur in this deck, but Augur feels like a great card. The regen is great. The ability to give something Overwhelm on top of that is pretty sweet with the Battle Fury combo we're trying to go for. Tiana Crown Guard also seems pretty interesting. We'll only put a 1-up in the deck. Oh, and by the way, guys, I did look at Mobile League's versions of this deck to help me sort of brew ideas for it. So, if we're going for the combat win condition, Tiana Crown Guard is going to be a great 8 drop that can abuse, not Battle Fury in this case, but other spells we could cast in response to her, giving them double the value and possibly winning the game off like a double Trundle buff or something like that. Keep in mind that Tiana also counts for Trundle's level up condition where he gets +1 attack for each 8 card you behold. With that in mind, now we just have to put in the rest of the cards into the deck, which fall into 2 categories that go along with the strategy I've been talking about. The first category is cards that help us get our win condition. Now, if we're playing a mid-range deck, the win condition is less defined because we're just trying to do damage, but keep our board alive. In a burn strategy, the win con is bringing your opponent down to 0, so what cards do the most damage? And that's why burn is sort of limited as an archetype. You only have a few cards that can actually do that very well. And that's why you sort of have to limit it to Noxus and the combination of either PNZ or, in this case, Bilgewater, thanks to Jack the Winner, which can act as like Decimate. And with all these damage cards, you can't play really into Shadow Isles or Targon with cards that are really more focused on doing less damage and having creature finishers, which you can't use in a burn strategy, which is how you identify your win con, as well as focus on getting there. So in this case, we're going to want to be playing our mid-range based cards. So cards like Omen Hawk, a Featherfleet Tracker possibly, would be pretty powerful in this deck if we had cards like Ice Veil, Archer, and Bright Steel Protector. So I feel like it's an auto-include. For 2 drops, we have Bright Steel Protector. I feel fine putting in some Sentries. They're pretty powerful. We can also put in Faces of the Old Ones. Now, the problem with that card in this deck is if we're trying to go for the mid-range early game, sort of keep our board alive stuff, we don't really need Faces of the Old Ones. It's a waste of a 2-drop. Our 4-drop isn't even going to be that good. So, I feel like we don't need that. We are going to play 2 Iceville Archers as well. Single combat, basically always a card here. I'll probably only... I think we'll keep it as a 3-up for now, actually. Or no, we'll put it as a 2 of them, pull an extra Troll Chant. Just experimenting with the deck is also important when you're first deck building. Sort of get a feel for the deck. I'll actually remove both Avarosans for 3 War Chefs. War Chefs just seems like such a power card. Right now in the meta, we have to decide whether or not we need Kindly Tavern Keeper. And this is the third category I want to talk about, guys. Tech cards. So tech cards fall into the third category of cards that go into your deck besides your win condition cards. Now, in the basic idea, actually, Trundle and Lux are not our win conditions. They help us get our win condition, which is dealing damage and having a better board than our opponents because we're mid-range. The win condition is what you're doing as a deck, whether you burn, control, or mid-range. It's basically in the name. Control's win condition is lasting long enough. What cards can help you get there? Specifically, the way we win the game was with cards like Battle Fury and Tiana Crown Guard, along with our champions. So the specific cards that help us win the game, and then the rest are just cards that support these really well and support the mid-game strategy. Now, the last category is tech cards. Cards that might not fit into our strategy. They might also fit into the strategy, but cards that mainly help us beat certain things in the metagame. I think that there's enough burn in the metagame to put 1 Kindly Tavern Keeper in for now. We might decide on 2 later if we feel like the burn matchup is just too prevalent. But as a tech card, we don't need that many of it, especially with cards like Single Combat and Troll Chant. And then we have a couple other options for 3 drops. We can put Avarosan Trapper, super strong card. We can put in, my thoughts are Vanguard Surgeon, because it creates that 4 Demacia that can level up Lux, get us some free damage, and pump our entire board, making our board harder to deal with. Our Augur and our Trundle Overwhelm gets an even better buff. So next, and this is part of the strategy I think that we're actually going to try to go for, is Avarosan Outriders. The Outriders are overwhelmed with another Overwhelm buff. So Battle Fury now gets 2 targets. The 4 Demacia now can combo really well with that, being able to get that double Overwhelm. And now here's sort of where you have to think about the deck. Do we want Lux still? This actually seems like a pretty good double attack deck. If you're thinking about going for the Quinn strategy, which could be very powerful. And I actually think that Quinn wouldn't be that bad in this deck. We're not playing that many high-cost spells, and so I feel like Lux actually doesn't fit this synergy anymore. And that is something else you have to think about when deck building. Does our deck, as the win condition, when you think about that, does Lux help the win condition more than Quinn does? And the answer is no. For the deck we're trying to build. Now, if we're trying to build a Lux deck, we could go really slow, get some of those big spells out there, get Battle Fury, Tiana Crown Guard out there, get some Ice Quakes in here, and play for that late game strategy more, but we're not going to. We're going to be playing for the early game. So, all right, we don't really need 2 Fury of the North in this meta game. I feel like the combination of 4 Demacia is going to be enough to, and Battle Fury, of course, is going to be enough to close out the game. And with Single Combat Troll Chant, we don't really need that much more interaction. Now, I did notice here that we played Avarosan Outriders, which forces our deck into a tight constriction of only being able to play a few Demacia cards. Now, that's weird. Usually, these decks play into Vanguard Bannerman a lot. But I feel like that Avarosan Outriders, that double Overwhelm, is going to matter much more in this deck. So if we go back, we can actually change a couple of the cards we put in the deck to make it more Freljord. Alright guys, so this is the final version of the deck I came up to. I did skip a lot of the editing things. I will talk about the deck. I decided to make it a Vanguard Bannerman style deck. The reason for being Bannerman over Freljord centered with the Freljord Allegiance card, if I can find it, Avarosan Outriders, is because although we do like the extra Overwhelm, we already have 2 dudes with Overwhelm. Our scouts are already going to get pretty buffed, and Battle Fury is also a great card. But I feel like the combination of Augur of the Old Ones into Radiant Guardian is going to be the most powerful combination we can get out of these 2 regions, especially in the strategy we're playing Tiana and Battle Fury right now. Tiana is more often than not, going to be a better finisher than Battle Fury is. Because Battle Fury gives one unit the buff, and that's a Trundle. They can block it. They're usually going to have one thing that can maybe survive or not survive, but give them enough health remaining to live. But if you scout your attack with Trundle and get that double buff, not the double buff with his ability, of course, with the attack, or just with his body in general, although they might kill him, they're going to die trying, right? They can't block that many dudes, especially if you use a card like Vanguard Surgeon into the 4 Demacia. Although that doesn't work with Tiana Crown Guard, that only really works with Relentless Pursuit or a Geneve attack if you are at 9 mana or choose to develop Geneve on your turn, which is not always a bad choice. But there's a lot of reasons to be playing more into the Scout Triggers style. Now, I will work on this deck. It's a little rough. We are playing Radiant Guardian for Augur the Old Ones, but we have no way to trigger Radiant Guardian reliably. Also, burn is not that big of a deal in the meta right now, so that combination might be a little too weak. I do definitely like Augur onto Quinn most of the time, even though Quinn's stats are a little bit rough. It's going to take a little bit of work to see where this deck can go, but I definitely feel like we hit the right strategy. We used all 3 points. We know what our win con is. We have all the cards to get us there. And we have some tech cards like Radiant Guardian. Definitely, one repost is a weird tech card in this meta, but it's there. Single Combat's the best tech card example. It's the only reactive card we really play in Bannerman. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope to probably play this deck in tomorrow's video. Hope you guys enjoyed my strategy of deck building, and I hope you guys can use it to make your own decks. I definitely think it's really strong and really a simple way to make complex concepts understandable. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.